Hi, welcome back to the shed. Bit of a special one today. I got asked by Micromusic Italy to do a video for their stream last Sunday, and while I was doing it, I know a lot of people are always asking me for a tour of my shed or of my games room, so I thought I'd incorporate the two and put this video on my YouTube channel as well. So the video itself covers a whole load of my stuff, but it's mainly focused on making music with Game Boys as well, and there's a bit of that in there, but I still think you should quite like it, so yeah, take a look. Okay, good morning everybody. It is Sunday the 30th of May, and I've been very kindly invited to take part in today's Micromusic Italy Sunday Jam, 2nd edition, and I'm dead excited. So I've been asked to come on and just talk to you about mods, Game Boy mods, any sort of random stuff to do with the kind of random stuff I do. So you're going to spend a bit of my morning with me. We're going to have a look around my games room here and look at some of my stuff I've done. We're going to pop out to my shed, which is my modding space, and you're going to take a look at whatever junk I've got in there. We'll hopefully do a little bit of modding out there too, and then we'll come back in here and take a look at some of my projects that I've got in various shelves, cupboards, drawers. We'll drag a few of those out and show you. And my aim is really just to get you inspired to have a go at modding yourself, of creating your own stuff, of modifying the things that you've got, and maybe share a few ideas on different ways of doing things, why you might want to do those that way. So yeah, made myself a cup of tea. We'll have a little wander around in here first, and you can get to see my infamous games room. So let's take a look. Okay, so as you can see, it is a small room, but it is definitely full of things, and we'll take a closer look at those things as we go around. But first, just a quick bit of orientation to give you a feel for this room that I spend a lot of time in. I've got this new sofa bed, so I can even sleep in here now, but this nice new sofa to sit on. In terms of my consoles, my PS4 and my Xbox One, you've got the Wii U, there's a Wii snuck in down here as well, and that's when we get to the more interesting modded consoles. So I'll just sit down, we'll take a look at those. This here is a Raspberry Pi in a fancy Mega Drive looking case, so that's got a Raspberry Pi 3 in there running RetroPie. That's a lot of fun. PlayStation 2, if you can get one in pink, then I'll have it in pink. This is modified. I put a mod chip in there so that can play multi-region games. My beloved Dreamcast. Now this is really heavily modded. This has got like an SD card drive inside it, and all sorts of different game images on SD there. I've done loads of upgrades on that. It's got an external power supply. It's got a quiet fan. It's awesome. And you can just run all your games off the SD card. Speaking of which, I don't have a GC loader yet, but this is my Gamecube. I've got a few Gamecubes, but I mean, come on, Orange Spice Game Boy. It's just so nice. And I've got the Game Boy player on there. So if you are into making music on your Game Boy and you want to do that on the TV, this works perfectly for it. You just load up the Game Boy player, put your LSDJ cartridge or your Nanoloop cartridge in there, and you can play to your heart's content. Down here, we've got all the mini consoles. I love the mini consoles. So we've got Super Nintendo, NES, a rather dusty Mega Drive, dear me, that needs sorting out. PlayStation, my favourite, PC Engine. And under here, we've also got the mini Commodore 64. So there are always toys to play with. Check out this. This is my original Xbox that's got the Team Executor control panel. So it's got like a little LCD that lights up and it'll tell you what game you're playing and things like that. It's got extra features like infrared over here for the remote control, various buttons, switches. It does have a mod chip in there as well, of course, and a couple of USB sockets as well. So that's kind of cool. VHS player for mainly for my old school skateboard videos, of which I've got a nice little collection down here. These shelves are awesome. IKEA Benno ones, so they're like quite tall But I got like, how many have we got here? Like 5 of them. I put them all side by side in this corner, so it's a cool little display wall, this one. Orange controllers to match my Gamecube, also my favourite controller ever, the Wavebird. My other Gamecube, so I've got a silver, I've got a purple, and the black one there. These have all got the matching Game Boy players, which is kind of cool. My game controllers, it's pink. I can't not buy something if it's pink. There's the matching controller for my PS2 as well. Pro controller for my Switch. Now you didn't see the Switch down here before because of the vertical dock. I couldn't find a space in this unit to be able to put it in there and be able to slide it out of the dock without getting in the way of the TV. So my Switch lives up here. This has got the Boxy Pixel aluminium controller shells, which has got an aluminium D-pad and also the kind of Game Boy style to this bottom right bit, which I think looks pretty awesome. It feels cool as well. It gives a bit of extra weight to the Switch. So yeah, you'll probably get a feeling of the fact that if it can be modded, I will usually mod it. I've got a bit of a SingStar obsession going on. I don't think any of my Game Boy Advance have got a Pro Sound mod, but you can do a Pro Sound mod on a Game Boy Advance. You can just about, I've got a clear one here, so it's quite good to show you. You can just about squeeze a socket in here, in that space, and I worked with 2XAA, Sam, hello Sam, to figure out a good way of doing a Pro Sound on Game Boy Advance. So it can be done. I might do a video on that at some point. But in terms of the mods on these at the moment, oh, that's got some batteries in. Let's see. I think this one's got one of the new IPS screens. So it's got a lovely bright screen on it. A lot of mods now are going this way with the IPS, which do look really, really nice. But the opportunities for really feeling like you're doing something interesting are dwindling, because it's just plug and play. You just open up, you drop the screens in, and they're away, which is great for people getting into modding. But if you like to actually really get stuck into feeling like you're making something, it's a bit different. I'll go into a bit of a dark corner to show you this one. So this is another mod I did a while ago. Now this is more like my kind of mod where you really get stuck into something. So that is the front light panel from a Game Boy Advance SP. I had a broken Game Boy Advance SP. The screen was cracked, but the front light was salvageable. Now this was before you could get the IPS screens. So this one was one of my earliest lit up. But yeah, so that's kind of was cool, but kind of redundant now with the IPS screens that you can get. Game Boy Advance SP, I love, like a Naruto one, NES. I've got Mario, we've got Zelda, my favourite, SpongeBob. SpongeBob has got an AGS 101 screen in there, pixel perfect. This one here has got the AGS 101 in it. Wonder if it's got any charge. Yeah. And I think the one on the Pikachu is from an original AGS 101, and that one was one of the Chinese screens. I did this one quite recently, Pokemon style one. Now this has got one of the IPS screens in it, and you can see the difference there. It's bigger. You look at the border around the screen on those, it's quite big, and it's got like different levels of brightness on there. The IPS screens are awesome, but the downside is that they do eat through your batteries. So I have modded some of my own batteries as well to make them last a bit longer. A few of the classic Pokemons there. We've got various adapters for using HDMI on different consoles, which is very useful when you're working on a modern TV like the one over here. Check out this lovely bit of artwork. I ordered a Game Boy off eBay years and years ago, and it came with this cool little card. So I put that in a frame. Got a modded Game Boy Pocket behind Tron here. We've got Odroid Go and a BitBoy and a LDK. So these are like not actual Game Boys. They're like sort of multi-game clone things, but you can stick an SD card in there, and you can actually load up LSDJ on those. So it's is a nice way of being able to do it. It won't sound quite as good as it does on an original Game Boy, but it's an option, which is cool. Controllers, like Bluetooth controllers, these are the 8-bit Do. I don't know, tiny little one. This is great for if you're doing LSDJ, because it's got like your Game Boy colors and Game Boy layout. Super Nintendo, can you tell I like these controllers? This NES one here as well. Plenty of Wiimotes there. Lego Simpsons there. Hello to the Ghostbusters. Yeah, I mean, you know. Ooh, check out my gold PlayStation 4 pad back there as well. So yeah, if you can mod it, I'll mod it. So whether that's swapping shells on controllers or whether it's upgrading consoles. Right, so what have we got above the sofa? Of course, I've got my games, my Blu-rays. I've got skateboards everywhere. I love doing my skateboarding. I'm into freestyle skateboarding. So that's my freestyle board, and that's my patio where I like to do a lot of my tricks. Check out my little Joe Bleeps canvas I got from retromodding.com. Isn't that awesome? They sent it to me. So I've got some of my favourite Game Boys and consoles along here. PSPs and PlayStation Vitas have all got custom firmware. Game Boy Pocket, this one's got an IPS screen, but I'm having a bit of a nightmare with it at the moment. It's got all these different colour palettes and things, but it eats the batteries. My Neo Geo Pocket Color, oh my word, the controller on this thing, the best clicky thumbstick ever. Now this is not modified or upgraded, but damn, it's a good console. This is a Neon Advance. This is a thing that I made. It's like a Game Boy Advance made out of bits of discarded DS Lite, and where you've got the hinge, I put like this plastic strip. When it comes on, that light strip lights up. How cool is that? So I called this Neon Advance, but it just works like a Game Boy Advance, but you've got the light up strip there. This one was based on the style of that one. I love how that turned out. So anyway, yeah, that's Neon Advance. Game Boy Color. This one's got an IPS screen. I've been doing the IPS upgrade on so many of them because, you know, Game Boy Color, I love it, but it was always so hard to see the screen. So with these things, it's great. You can do like internal Pro Sound mods on these. There's other sound mods you can do on Game Boy Color, but I never found them that satisfying. So yeah, but that screen with the glass lens over it, I mean, wow, it just looks awesome. So yeah, that one's got the IPS screen. These are cool though. So on where you had the contrast dial before, if you press it, you can swap between different color palettes, which is kind of cool. Right, now this is my favorite one for chiptune because, right, so you know I was talking to you before about this screen, which is bigger. It's bigger in terms of the display, but the actual screen unit is smaller. And what that means is when it's in place, there's a little bit of spare room around here inside the shell, which is how I've managed to fit this audio jack socket in here. So that's kind of like having a, let's try and open it, kind of like having a Pro Sound modded Game Boy Advance SP. And that's got the battery upgrade as well. So this is like my go-to SP. I have many SPs, as you can see. But that one I really like. I like making laser cut parts, so I made like this little stand for my Neon Advance, which is kind of cool, isn't it? Oh, and I made one for my Game & Watch as well, look at that. These little Game & Watch Super Mario edition are so good. So this has got like a backlight panel in it. Let's try and get the contrast right for you to see there. And that's got a bivert on it as well. Now that one, in terms of the power, it's got like a lithium polymer battery, like the type you'd use for a little drone copter. And that lasts ages. I think since I installed it about a year and a half ago, I've like charged it twice. EverDrive, that's me LSDJ ones. I'm very lucky to have a couple of these Dragon Derps. It's so good for doing LSDJ. I've got this one, which is my own logo cartridge. Ta-da! Oh, my Super Nintendo. Now, when I first got into mods, doing Super Nintendos was one of the first things that I did. Things like these little switches for swapping the region and changing the display from PAL to NTSC, things like that. That sat there waiting for a video testing out this HDMI adapter. I've done it with the N64 already. Toys everywhere. Got my new Castle Grayskull, got my old Castle Grayskull. As I say, more boards and stuff on the wall everywhere, and toys. You can tell we've got a bit of a He-Man theme going on there. a Lego Millennium Falcon. Oh, and yeah, more skateboards. I do love music. Obviously, I've got a little bit of a vinyl collection going on there, but I love listening to music. I love making music. Check out these cool clear shelves. Dark Judges boards up there. But anyway, let's actually talk about what we're here for, because it's the Micromusic Italy. And I realise I'm just talking about my toys and things. So yeah, this is my music making area. I've just recently installed an extra shelf here to make a bit more room, because these units were kind of along the side here and I wanted a better space in which to work. This is one of my most recently modded Game Boys. I got the shell from retromodding.com and the screen kit and everything else in there. I think they ended up calling it the Neptune. But I mean, it's a beautiful shell. And that's not printed. There's a lot of printed shells about now, but this is actually moulded with all these sort of swirly colours in there. Other gear I've got along here. Got my Behringer drum machine, bass line there on my mixer and stuff like that. So I love playing around with all these things. In terms of recording, I've got a MacBook Pro from 2012. Best thing about that is it's got a stereo line in, so I can record whatever I'm making on there. Recently I've been quite into buying different toys like these, or like these pocket operators. I've designed, or I'm in the process of designing, a case for pocket operator as well. I've got a few tweaks to make for this one, which is the Pocket Operator Arcade. We've got any tunes actually in there at the moment. Love these things. So yeah, that's a current project. Generally, if there is a project available, if I can take something apart and change it, or if I can make something new, then I'll always take that opportunity. Got my Street Fighter one there that I've been learning how to use recently. If you're into chiptune, things like that, and you use your Game Boy and you want some more effect, a bit like with the Chaos Pad, this Korg NTS1 is brilliant. It's got like all delay, reverb, echo effects. The Game Boy sounds really cool through that. This thing here, you may know what these are. This is an Arduino Boy. So it's got a little Arduino computer in there that's programmed for MIDI in and out for the Game Boy. So LSDJ will work with MIDI. So that connects through the link port and that plugs in here. And then you get a MIDI cable out. So for example, I could have the clock signal. So it's the timing from my drum machine, play my drums. And when I start that, it will start LSDJ at the same time. And the tempo of the music on LSDJ will match that. The other thing you can use that for is for MIDI in. So if you've got like a controller, like my awesome 80s style or 90s, I don't know, keytar, a MIDI socket on the end there. So I can plug a cable in there. I can program a particular sound in LSDJ and then use my keyboard to play it rather than program on the Game Boy. Right, so that is a bit of a tour of this room. So what we'll do now is we'll go out, we'll have a look in my shed, maybe do a little bit of modding, and then we'll come back in here if we've got time. Okay, let's take a look in the shed. I think we're going to need a wider angle. There we go. All right, this is my shed. So from the moment you walk in, you know it's kind of geeky. These awesome paintings done by my friend Katie that I've got up here. This is like my 3D printing space. I've got an Elegoo Mars Resin Printer. It's really good for printing really fine detail stuff. It can do stuff like these brackets for holding new screens in place in Game Boys, but other stuff like this camera bracket that I made. I just do my modeling on Tinkercad, and then you can just stick them on a USB drive, plug them in there, and print them off in this. It's pretty cool. I've got so many little bits and pieces. I never really throw anything away, which does mean I've got a hoard of stuff. But generally, if there's a switch or a circuit board or a shell or something like that that I need, I've usually got it to hand. Kirby's a handy fan. If you're using super glue, it blows away any of the fumes, which is pretty handy. Now these are the resins that I use for my printer. Game Boys everywhere. These jam jars are pretty handy for all of my DS Lite parts. So I've got all the buttons in the jars like this, and then they just hook back on when I don't need them. So that's really useful. Right, so I've got my nice comfy chair. Let's sit down. Right, okay, so this is my modding workspace, and I've generally got everything I need to hand in here. Got all my tools organised on the back wall there, bits and pieces everywhere. I mean, you know, I just sit in the centre of this room, and usually just spinning around on this chair, I can reach everything that I need. Up top here, I've got this bracket for when I'm doing my YouTube videos, and it just kind of hangs down from the ceiling. It's like a little bracket it's mounted from, and my camera sits in there above this space. But I've been having issues with the camera, so I've just designed and made this one, which my phone is going to go in, so we'll try that in a little bit. This is a space I spend so much time in, and people are always asking for little tours, but generally it's boxes and bits and stuff like this everywhere, and little drawers and stuff. It's kind of organised chaos, really. I'm going to switch on my soldering iron. It's a bank holiday weekend here, so it's a bit noisy out here this morning, but we'll see how it goes. I think if we do a quick video, we'll do a Pro Sound mod, something like that, and just to show you kind of how easy it is to do a mod. You don't necessarily need like all of these tools and bits and equipment. This is stuff I've accumulated. It does tend to build up. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a big toolkit, just buy the tools you need for the job at the time. Let's see, I've got this Game Boy here. Somebody sent me. It's got a dyed pink shell. How cool is that? But I'm not sure if it's pro sounded or if it's just got the original sound output. So I'm going to open that up and take a little look. I suppose that will give us a good opportunity to set up the new bracket. Hang on a minute. Okay, and we're back. There's our camera. So this should slide in here. Oh, there we go. That's pretty good. Right, when you're opening up Game Boys, normally you get these tri-wing screws where you need a special screwdriver for those. This one seems to have been put together with Phillips head screws, so that makes life a little easier. Okay, right, so this has not been pro sounded. It's just got the original headphone amp in there. So a pro sound mod, basically it sounds fancy, but all you're doing is you're bypassing this headphone amplifier. Now this does make a louder sound, but it does involve a bit of background hiss as well. So the quality of the sound as a result of it being amplified is not quite as clean. So if you want a clean signal, you need to bypass this, and you need to just sort of connect your output directly to the sound outputs, which are near this volume dial here. So you've got like 5 points going down. Now I've got a diagram somewhere that explains it fairly well, so I'll see if I can find that. So we've got like these 5 points down here. From top to bottom. Your pre-pot basically means your sound output that isn't affected by the volume dial. Post-pot means that you can adjust that volume. So you choose whether you want that right and left point or that right and left point. Now in this case, we're going to be using it with the volume dial, so we're going to use those two. So that'll be the left and the right signal. And if you need it, the ground. So if you're using like a socket like this for a separate audio output, you can connect that up, which means you can keep your headphone amp intact, and you get like this second output here. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but that's those main connections. So all I'm going to be using in this case is, if you go from the top, the third and the fourth down, which will be my left and right signal. Now in terms of preparation, you need to remove some bits that are connected. So that is my terrible drawing of this part here, which is the headphone amp, and you need to connect to these two solder points with the left and the right, those 2 points we were just talking about. The right connects to this middle blob there, the left to the one on the left, handily enough, and you need to cut and remove the two black wires on the left. So that's what we're going to do. It does involve a bit of soldering. If you've not done soldering before, it's really good fun. You should try it. So this is where I look like an alcoholic having a hip flask in my shed. Sorry to disappoint. Or maybe it won't disappoint. It's just got water in it for putting on my sponge on my soldering iron, because I haven't got a tap out here. Normally, if you were doing what's called a separate Pro Sound mod, what you'd do is you'd drill a hole out of this bit of the shell, which can be quite difficult. What I made a while ago was this jig. Let's go on a slightly wider angle on the lens there. So this jig, I designed it so that you just sort of take off these bits, take that part off there, and then you get your front part of a shell, like this one here. That's where I'm going to drill. So that just sits in, slots in place, it all goes back together, and then you can drill in the top. These two holes are for if you're doing the RCA Pro Sound mod. So if you need to drill out at the top, that goes in there, it all slots back together, and you drill straight down, and it means that I get the holes lined up perfectly. You don't have to use that, but it's just another example of the fact that if there's an opportunity to make something, do it. It's fun. So that's what I do. Now, if you've got one going in there and you've got that extra socket, you'll notice these capacitors get in the way. So all you need to do with that, see there's a bit of space underneath? You just unscrew it, take that out, fold those underneath, and then you've got space for putting your extra parts. Now, I don't need that for today, because all I'm doing is removing these two wires and adding in some extra bits. Okay, so preparation time. Cutting the wires first, so I'll use some side cutters for that. So I'll just clip here and here. These two. Turn them around, I need to cut. Right, so I've removed those two bits, and now I'm going to need solder on the middle bit, on the left, and on the, let's see, third and fourth points down here. I've just got a little bit of solder there. And I'll warm up and just melt that solder. I'm going to put some extra solder on. It'll come up a bit shinier. Try and avoid breathing in these fumes. And then melt some onto this part here. Because obviously, you know, these Game Boys, they go back a few years, don't they? So this is decades old solder. And if you want it to flow, it's worth putting a bit more on. So right, left, so we'll go the third one down and just melt a bit of extra solder on that point there. And here, like that. And that's where I'm going to attach some extra wires. How much do I need? It's basically going to go from here up to here, so about that long. It should be fine. Cut that off, and we'll go with blue for the other one. I'll get that to about the same size. I tend to use wire that's quite narrow. I think this is like, yeah, this is 30 AWG. I've also got 32, which is even smaller. But one of the advantages I like of any wire is if the insulation is nice and soft, because you don't have to use wire strippers. Then you can just ping off a little bit with your thumbnail at the end, and it makes all the jobs a lot easier. Like I prepared these surfaces, I'm going to do the same with the wires as well. Let's just pop that out of the way. Now, things like these helping hand crocodile clips are quite useful a lot of the time. But if you're preparing wires, it's worth just getting your solder sticking up from the reel like that. And then all you need to do is get your wire near it, melt the solder, and just get a little bit onto the end. Now, if you haven't used a soldering iron before, and you've got your precious Game Boy that you had as a child, or your Game Boy that you just spent a fortune on eBay, because the prices do seem to be going up now, don't have that as your first solder job. Get like a random old circuit board or a bit of an old PC graphics card or something like that, and just experiment on that until you've got the hang of it. Then when you're ready, then you go on to doing your Game Boy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take my wires, and I'll do the left one first. So all I've got to do, I've already prepared my points. I'll just line up my wire near the point where I prepared it, heat it, and I've already got solder on the wire, and those two bits of solder are just going to merge together. Next one down is going to be the right signal. Reheat that point, let those merge together, hold it steady while it's set, and that's all good. Then I'll bring those down. So the middle one is the right signal, and the leftmost one is the left signal. So the right, which is this one here, is going to go onto there. So I'll just reheat the big blob and put the wire in place, hold it steady, and that's good to go. My left into the leftmost one, heat that, I got that in place, and then that is done. All we need to do is tidy up the wires. So I tend to use Kapton tape for this, but any tape's fine. Sellotape, masking tape, insulation tape. Kapton tape's great stuff for modding though, because it's very, very heat resistant. If you're doing soldering around an area, or if you're desoldering and you don't want to damage other components, it's quite good this, because it's quite protective of your other components that you don't want to cause any problems with. Flatten these wires down here. Now, there's a few advantages to this, and I definitely would suggest it as a first go, a first mod. First of all, originally, I was really into doing mods, and I liked seeing all the extra sockets and all the extra bits and things like that. But over time, I like the clean look. Secondly, I found this actual socket to be really good in terms of when the cable's in and moves around, you don't get a lot of interference. And with these metal ones, sometimes as the cable rotates, you get a little bit of crackle and feedback. And if you're on stage and you're moving your Game Boy around and things, that can be a little bit annoying. So I'm just taping these down, keep them out of the way of any of these bits here for when it goes back together. And that's your mod done. So we've added the 2 wires there. We've removed those 2 wires, and these connect up there, and that is literally it. So you don't need all the extra parts for doing Pro Sound. You can do that, and when it's all back together, we'll just put the ribbon back in place here, like that. When it's all back together, no one would ever know, apart from you. Yeah, so that is, I would say, both the easiest and the most useful mod for Game Boys. Alright, so we've come back inside. I've got some sound on. What I want to show you next is the Arduino Boy. So that's currently set up and ready to go. My Game Boy is loaded up with LSDJ, and what I'm going to do is I've got my drum machine, my RD6, hooked up to my bass synth. So they're in sync through this cable, so the clock sync, the timing will be the same. I've also got the MIDI cable coming out the back, which connects up to here. So when I start, I mean, if I don't do anything with the Game Boy now and I start it and we just get the drums and bass going, so that, I'll just turn down a moment. So the drums are playing and the bass is in time with that. If you look at the Arduino Boy, you'll see the LEDs are cycling through and flashing in the same timing, but nothing's happening on the Game Boy yet because I've not triggered it. So if I just reset my baseline, and now on here, I've got the sync set to MIDI in the LSDJ settings. So if I press start now, it'll go on wait. And then if I, let's see, did I reset the bass? So I'll start this now, and we'll turn it up and we'll hear all those together. Now if we adjust the tempo, and then if we stop there, it stops everything else, and that's just waiting to be triggered again. Now, we'll take a little look at this for effects as well. So now I've changed the output of the Game Boy, and it's connected to the audio in on my NTS1, which is just what you can do with that. So if I just play it now, the Game Boy would play as normal. Right, so I've turned sync off there. We'll just go back to the main screen so I can just play that as normal. And then on this, we've got like these effects, so we can get like a delay effect on there. You can also add reverb. Change my sync to MIDI again. So if I start, just sounds really, really dramatic through this. So yeah, loads of fun with all that stuff. Last bit now, you hear about the mods. So I want to talk about some mods. This is my case I take with me to shows. Remember live shows? I miss them. So that's got all my cables and stuff. This is an iRig mix, like a portable mixer that you can power via USB. It is awesome, so handy. But in terms of chiptune, I was really into doing like the sound mods. This one, it's actually got Bluetooth audio in it, and you press and hold the start select to activate that. That was a cool thing to try out at the time. Not very useful for live and things like that because you get a bit of lag, but I have got the Pro Sound mods. The audio at the top here on the RCA jacks is connected. You know, when we were in the shed and we were looking at the points near the volume dial, the pre-pot left and right are connected there, so this dial doesn't affect it at all. This goes straight to your mixer, and you've just got the left and the right connected to those points, and both of them connected to ground, and that plugs into the mixer. This other bit on top, this is a PS2 keyboard, not PS2 like PlayStation 2, but like an old style before they had the USB keyboards, like a computer keyboard, plugs in there. And a bit like where we were looking at the MIDI sync on the Game Boy, you can use that computer keyboard as a MIDI keyboard, so that's like a little socket just for plugging that straight in. I've also got a separate Pro Sound, so on this one the headphone socket's been left intact, so when we did the mod in the shed that was using this point. If you don't want to interfere with that and you want to add a separate one, you know, I was saying about folding the capacitors out of the way, well that's what we do there to make room for this socket, which fits in, so you can just plug your audio cable in there and get your stereo line out. Other mods I've got, this one's quite an interesting one because I did some light up start and select buttons, but I've added a little switch. Now which one was it? There you go. So you with the little slide switch on the side, you can turn those button lights on and off. Makes absolutely no difference to your chiptune music, but it does look kind of cool, so there's that. Now the thing is, when you are playing your music, if you've done the Pro Sound mod like this, it doesn't cut out the speaker in the way that this socket does, so you could be playing through that and then you'll still get the sound from the speaker. So I did another switch on here, and what that does is it just mutes the speaker, so that can be quite useful in some cases as well, because you still need the volume dial to adjust your Pro Sound volume. So it's not like you can just turn the volume down so nothing comes out the speaker. The speaker works and that works both kind of independently, so having a speaker mute button is pretty cool. I like the pink backlight on this one, it's such a cool colour scheme. Can you tell yellow Game Boys are my favourite? This is in one of the Kitsch bent shells with some Kitsch bent buttons, and it's got an orange backlit screen in it, so not an IPS. This is one of the original backlight panels. I still love using these because they use such little power. They last a long time, which means they're more reliable when you're on stage. Fancy mods on this one, we've got a blue power LED in there. I've got a blue LED on the power switch itself, like a clear blue power switch with a blue LED behind it, which is kind of cool. Again, it's got the keyboard sync socket on there, left and right Pro Sound. Now the cool thing about the Pro Sound on this one is it's got like so many. It's got that one for like one of the larger jacks, so they can plug in like a guitar cable, or there's the headphone jack which has been left alone, or there's the 3.5mm Pro Sound. So we've got three options there, but, and this is my favorite thing about this one, I fitted this switch. See this slide switch here? So that swaps between pre-pot and post-pot, so they're all wired up to the same, so affecting the volume. If I go to pre-pot, then that and that will all just go straight as a line out to the mixer. They all do the same thing. They all have the same sound, but you've got the option, depending on what cables you've got, you can connect it up to any output, which is quite useful. So that's probably my favourite modded Game Boy. So I hope that's been useful. And I think that's about it. So I'm going to go and get some lunch. Thank you for joining me this morning, and I hope you enjoy the stream. Hope it all goes well. If you want to see more of my stuff, I do have a YouTube channel where I do all my mods and things like that and full tutorials, so go and check that out. Just Google Joe Bleeps and you'll find my stuff, you'll find my music and things like that. I hope you've enjoyed your visit, and have fun. Bye.